The cosmos stretches infinitely, a silent ocean of darkness dotted with cold, indifferent stars. You feel the weight of eternity pressing against your senses, as if time itself is holding its breath. Somewhere in the vast emptiness, a whisper travels, a secret older than humanity, a knowledge that mortals were never meant to grasp. You cannot look away, cannot stop listening. The universe itself seems to pulse, resonating with something forbidden. And then in that silence, a presence emerges, both comforting and terrifying. The Emperor of Mankind. Not a god, not a hero in the stories sung by hopeful generations, but a paradox incarnate. Immortal-wise, yet bound by choices and compromises that ripple across millennia. You sense the grandeur of his vision, the brilliance that unites and protects, but also the shadow it casts. The hidden cost of eternal life, the unseen suffering beneath every triumph. You hear it in the void, the whispers of civilizations rising and falling, the faint echoes of battles long past, the silent cries of countless souls whose fates were tied to one man's ambition. What is the true price of immortality? You feel it before you understand it. The psychic weight of power beyond comprehension, the moral tension between necessity and hubris. Every thought, every fleeting desire, every spark of hope or fear becomes a thread in the tapestry of consequences stretching across the galaxy. And here, in this fragile moment between attention and awareness, you are drawn in. You are witnessing not just history, but inevitability itself. The story will unfold slowly, deliberately. There is no escape from the gravity of what you are about to see. The Emperor's immortality is not merely a blessing. It is a labyrinth of power, ambition, and moral compromise, a shadow that stretches across the stars, touching every life it can reach. The opening 20 seconds have passed, and already the tension tightens. You feel it in your chest, in the quiet hitch of breath, in the thrill of anticipation. The story begins, not with a clash of weapons, not with the roar of armies, but with a question. What is the cost of eternal life when one carries the weight of a galaxy? From here, the scene begins to expand. The Imperium of Man emerges in your mind's eye, a fragile empire built on both brilliance and blood. The Emperor's vision, the perils of the warp, the subtle seduction of power, the first compromises, all start to intertwine, setting the stage for a slow, inexorable journey into the dark heart of immortality. The galaxy is vast beyond comprehension, a tapestry of light and shadow where billions of worlds drift in silence, their histories interwoven with triumph and ruin. Among these stars, humanity struggled for survival, fragile and scattered, prey to both the indifference of the void and the malignancy of forces beyond mortal understanding. It was into this turbulence that the Emperor of Mankind emerged, a figure shrouded in legend, yet grounded in vision. You feel the weight of his ambition pressing through the void. The Emperor was not born to rule. He was forged by necessity, a convergence of intellect, psychic might, and unyielding will. His purpose was singular yet impossible, to unite humanity, to shepherd a species teetering on the brink of annihilation, and to shape a future where survival was not mere chance but design. Every mind, every colony, every nascent civilization was a potential thread in his intricate weave. But power, you realize, is never without cost. The Emperor's early campaigns were feats of ingenuity and determination, uniting fractured worlds and quelling endless conflict. His psychic mastery, delicate yet devastating, allowed him to perceive the subtle currents of the warp, to anticipate threats invisible to ordinary perception. Yet, even in these victories, shadows gathered. Choices made for the sake of order carried hidden consequences. Lives were sacrificed in ways the universe would scarcely remember. Yet the psychic echoes lingered, whispering of imbalance and unseen cost. Immortality, or something close to it, bound the Emperor to his task. Each victory extended his influence, but also tethered him ever more tightly to the responsibilities he could never abandon. The warp, that invisible sea of psychic energy, responded to his will with both obedience and subtle rebellion. A reminder that even the greatest power is a dialogue, never a monologue. The potential for corruption and compromise was never absent. It merely waited, patient and imperceptible, in the spaces between ambition and necessity. You sense the philosophical tension threading through it all. Ambition versus morality, power versus restraint, destiny versus consequence. The Emperor's vision demanded sacrifices, yet even the smallest act of mercy or indulgence could ripple across centuries. You feel the weight of these choices as they press against your own understanding, inviting reflection. How far can one reach before the very act of reaching begins to unravel the fabric of all they seek to protect? Civilization under the Emperor's guidance flourished in grandeur, yet fragility was its constant companion. The Imperium of Man, vast and awe-inspiring, was built on the careful balancing of intellect, discipline, and fear. Each world, each system became a reflection of both potential and peril, an echo of the paradox inherent in wielding unmatched power. And through it all, the Emperor's presence was subtle yet omnipresent, a guiding hand, a watchful eye, a silent consciousness threading through the lives of billions, shaping the destiny of humanity, even as he remained ever apart from it. As you watch this unfolding tableau, the question lingers, can a single mind bear the weight of a galaxy? The story of the Emperor is not only of conquest and vision, but of restraint, compromise, and the delicate negotiation between hope and hubris. Every triumph, every act of creation, every moral choice carries with it the seed of consequence, the echo of an inevitability that will grow louder as the centuries unfold. In the quiet corners of the Imperium, the first tints of moral compromise take root. Early campaigns, decisions made for survival, subtle manipulations of the warp, they all lay the groundwork for a universe in which power, even for the most benevolent of beings, is inseparable from cost. You feel it in your mind, a tension between awe and unease, as if history itself is breathing, anticipating the inevitable collision between ambition and consequence. Here in this vast setting, the stage is prepared. The Imperium rises, the Emperor's vision crystallizes, and the philosophical undertones of immortality, responsibility, and cosmic consequence are threaded into every gesture, every act, every whisper across the stars. The journey is beginning, slow, deliberate, inexorable, and it will test the limits of human understanding and endurance. Long before the Imperium rose, before the first fleets cut paths across the stars, the Emperor existed as a convergence of will, intellect, and psychic potential. His origins are shrouded in both legend and mystery, a being born not of mere flesh but of purpose, sculpted by the needs of a species on the brink of annihilation. You sense his presence, a subtle vibration in the currents of the warp, a consciousness that has watched humanity stumble, falter, and rise through countless millennia. The early days were a testament to patience and foresight. Humanity was scattered, fragile, and consumed by superstition, petty conflict, and ignorance. Yet within these broken worlds, the Emperor saw possibility. He moved silently, subtly gathering knowledge, aligning minds and guiding civilization with a hand both firm and unseen. His psychic awareness allowed him to perceive the tapestry of potential, tracing the threads that could unite or unravel entire cultures. You feel the weight of his ambition pressing across time. Each decision, each intervention was calculated to elevate humanity without crushing its spirit entirely. He crafted societies, seeded philosophies, and occasionally intervened in battles whose outcome might have seemed trivial to a single observer but were pivotal in the grand weave of destiny. The Emperor's power was not brute. It was subtle, deliberate, and inexorably precise. As his influence grew, so too did the first hints of obsession with perfection. Every victory, every unification of disparate human factions became both a triumph and a whisper of warning. Power, even for one whose intentions were noble, carried the burden of moral compromise. Lives were saved, yes, but at the cost of unseen consequences, subtle echoes that would resonate across centuries. The Emperor's understanding of the warp was unparalleled. He could feel its currents, anticipate its surges, and manipulate its energies with a mastery that bordered on divinity. Through this connection, he glimpsed futures, potentialities, and the infinite paths of human endeavor. Yet with such insight came isolation. The burden of knowing, of seeing possibilities that others could not comprehend, set him apart. Even the greatest minds of the age were unable to grasp the full extent of his vision. And for those who tried, the weight of the Emperor's foresight was overwhelming. Civilizations rose under his guidance, yet each success was tinged with paradox. The very act of unifying humanity required subtle coercion, persuasion, and the occasional imposition of will. The Emperor was a sculptor of societies, shaping destinies with precision, yet always aware that perfection is both aspiration and peril. The first sparks of ethical ambiguity emerged here. When does guidance become control, and when does protection become subjugation? You sense the grandeur of his psychic might in every campaign. Cities, entire continents, and eventually star systems felt the touch of his intellect and will. The earliest Primarchs were crafted to be extensions of this vision, instruments of both leadership and exploration, each imbued with unique gifts to shepherd humanity further into unity. Even these creations bore the subtle imprint of the Emperor's obsession with perfection, flawless in purpose, yet inevitably carrying within them the seeds of tension and conflict. The early feats of the Emperor were spectacular in scope, yet intimate in impact. A single word, a gesture, a psychic nudge could shift the course of thousands of lives, millions even. You are drawn into the sensation of his presence, simultaneously inspiring and disquieting. As civilizations rose and fell under the weight of his foresight, the narrative of his emergence is not a tale of violence alone. It is one of calculation, psychological insight, and the slow, deliberate shaping of a species toward a destiny few could comprehend. And yet, the first whispers of hubris stir even here. The Emperor's desire for order, his drive to perfect humanity, is inseparable from the inevitability of compromise. Each intervention, no matter how necessary, exacts a toll. Subtle currents of imbalance ripple outward. A culture elevated yet morally restrained, a world united yet ethically burdened. The foundations of his power, while mighty, are built on choices whose consequences will echo for millennia. The sensory fabric of this period is vivid and alive. You can feel the psychic echoes of 1,000 civilizations, hear the subtle hum of warp currents shaping history, and perceive the silent anticipation of events yet to unfold. Every act of creation, every unification, every subtle manipulation is a brushstroke in the grand painting of humanity, a painting whose colors will darken and intensify with time. This section establishes the Emperor as a being of paradox, omnipotent yet isolated, benevolent yet ethically compromised, visionary yet bound by the consequences of his own perfection. You begin to understand that even the greatest power cannot escape the tension between aspiration and consequence, and that the origins of the Emperor's might are inseparable from the shadows that will eventually threaten all he has built. Eternal life is a gift wrapped in a shroud of inexorable burden. The Emperor, for all his might and vision, is bound to the ceaseless march of time, bearing a weight invisible to those around him. Each century stretches endlessly before him, a panorama of human triumph and folly that he alone perceives in full. To live eternally is to witness the relentless repetition of mistakes, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the unending consequences of choices once made. You feel this weight pressing against your own understanding, a mirror of what it means to be both omnipotent and profoundly alone. Immortality isolates. Friends, allies, and even entire civilizations pass into history, leaving the Emperor as a solitary witness to the unfolding of fate. The bonds of kinship and camaraderie are fleeting, ephemeral, incapable of bridging the chasm of centuries. The psychological toll is immense. The Emperor carries memories too vast for any mind to hold, each a reminder of victories and failures alike. Every soul lost, every rebellion quelled, every life sacrificed in pursuit of unity adds another layer to the quiet anguish of his existence. With unending life comes the relentless pressure of moral responsibility. Every intervention, every campaign, every decision is a double-edged sword. Lives are saved, but others are extinguished. Civilizations flourish, yet moral compromise lingers like a shadow. The Emperor's vision demands perfection, yet perfection is unattainable. You begin to sense the tension between necessity and morality, between the ethical ideal and the pragmatic choice. The psychic strain of maintaining this delicate balance grows heavier with each passing century, an invisible weight carried without respite. Ethical compromises are not abstract concepts. They are lived experience. The Great Crusade, a monumental campaign to unify humanity, is as much a triumph as it is a testament to cost. Worlds are conquered, but not all willingly. Sacrifices are demanded, dissent is quelled, and the lives of millions become collateral for the greater vision. The Emperor's psychic awareness magnifies every consequence, every ripple of suffering. He perceives the pain of entire populations as vividly as he perceives the victories, and this duality forms the invisible burden of his existence. The rise of the Primarchs illustrates both the necessity and the danger of his immortality. These superhuman sons are extensions of his will, instruments of unification and guidance. Yet even in their creation there is compromise. The scattered infant Primarchs, cast across the galaxy by unknown forces, grow up shaped by worlds the Emperor cannot control. Their eventual reunion with him brings triumph, but also tension, moral ambiguity, and the seeds of future betrayal. Immortality magnifies these consequences, for the Emperor's oversight is eternal, and yet not absolute. You can feel the psychic resonance of his sacrifices. The countless lives weighed against the single vision of humanity's survival and dominance. Every strategic choice carries unintended consequences. Entire societies flourish yet stagnate, innovations are delayed, and the spark of potential is sometimes dimmed to maintain order. Immortality magnifies not only the Emperor's power, but also the cost of every decision, embedding subtle decay into the very fabric of human civilization. Isolation and burden intertwine with the subtle toll on his own psyche. The Emperor's mind stretches across the warp, touching countless human minds, feeling every pulse of fear, hope, and ambition. Yet this connection is both gift and curse. The awareness of all potential futures, all human failings, and all moral compromises erodes the simplicity of action, leaving him in a constant state of calculated vigilance. Loneliness becomes a constant companion, shadowing every triumph with the quiet echo of unfulfilled ideals. Pivotal events underscore the price of immortality. Conflicts with the forces of chaos test not only his strength, but the endurance of his moral compass. Every campaign, every confrontation with the warp's horrors reminds him that even infinite life cannot grant invulnerability. Sacrifices once deemed necessary become burdens that linger eternally, and the line between heroic act and moral compromise blurs under the scrutiny of centuries. Psychological strain manifests subtly yet persistently. Dreams are haunted by the faces of those lost, by visions of civilizations undone, and by the unending knowledge that every choice has repercussions beyond comprehension. Even the Emperor's victories are tinged with quiet anguish, a reminder that immortality spares no one from consequence, and that power without temporal limits magnifies the shadows of responsibility. You begin to understand that immortality is not a shield, but a lens, clarifying, intensifying, and elongating every consequence. To live forever is to exist in the tension between ambition and morality, between action and reflection, between the salvation of billions and the quiet suffering of countless others. The Emperor's eternal life is not freedom. It is vigilance, restraint, and the unending negotiation between what is possible and what is just. Here the philosophical reflection deepens. Eternal life is both necessary and cursed. It allows the Emperor to shape humanity's destiny, yet it isolates him from the very people he seeks to guide. It grants omnipotence in action, yet demands omniscience in consequence. Immortality is the price of vision, and the price is unending. Beyond the physical universe lies the warp, a turbulent, infinite sea of psychic energy, reflecting the desires, fears, and ambitions of all sentient life. It is a place where reality bends, where thought and emotion shape substance, and where chaos stirs, eternal and insidious. To enter its influence is to confront both wonder and terror, for it mirrors the soul in ways that are intimate, unrelenting, and dangerous. The Emperor, despite his unparalleled mastery, is not immune. You feel the subtle tug, the whispering currents that brush against the mind, hinting at pleasures and power beyond mortal reckoning. Chaos is not merely an external threat. It is an echo of ambition, desire, and imperfection within every being. The Emperor senses it in the hearts of his sons, in the quiet of his empire, in the subtle cracks of mortal pride. It is a shadow that stretches across time and space, seeking entry through hubris, curiosity, or weakness. The allure of power is never overt. It is a whisper, a fleeting thought, a reflection of latent desire. And in that whisper, entire worlds can bend, unseen, to the will of chaos. You sense the psychological struggle inherent in this confrontation. The Emperor must balance intervention with restraint. To act too forcefully risks corruption, yet inaction allows subtle decay to fester. Chaos is patient, sculpting civilizations, twisting leaders, and seducing the ambitious. Every unguarded mind is a potential vessel. Every unchecked desire is a pathway for corruption. The Emperor's awareness of this duality is ceaseless, a constant vigilance against forces both external and internal. The subtle seduction of chaos manifests differently in each encounter. For some, it is ambition promised as destiny. For others, forbidden knowledge or the intoxication of power. You can feel the tension between the Emperor's guiding hand and the shadowed impulses of those he seeks to lead. Each Primarch, each world, Each citizen is a node in a vast lattice, vulnerable to the quiet, insidious manipulation of chaos. The warp does not need to strike openly. It infects through suggestion, longing, and the mirrored reflection of mortal desire. Immersion into these struggles emphasizes their intimate danger. The Emperor perceives not only the strategic ramifications, but the philosophical consequences. What is the cost of moral compromise when victory is assured only through subtle manipulation of fate? What price does the soul pay when ambition and desire intertwine with power? Chaos teaches that the line between salvation and corruption is razor thin, and that even the strongest will is shaped by the whispering tides of unseen forces. You feel the tension rise as chaos infiltrates indirectly, exploiting flaws and magnifying weaknesses. Entire sectors of the Imperium can be influenced without a single battle, a misguided advisor, a subtle temptation, a fleeting indulgence, all becoming catalysts for profound consequence. The Emperor's vigilance is constant. His psychic senses stretched across worlds, yet even he cannot be everywhere at once. This limitation creates the paradox of power. The more one seeks to control, the more one is reminded of one's own imperfection. Sensory and philosophical immersion heightens the narrative. The Emperor perceives the warp storms not as explosions of light, but as ripples of emotion, waves of craving, currents of fear. Each surge is a test of discernment, a reflection of morality and an echo of cosmic balance. Chaos is not always loud. It is often quiet, intimate, and seductive. It teaches patience, manipulation, and the inevitability of human fallibility. The section emphasizes the human element within cosmic struggle. Leaders, soldiers, artists, and thinkers are all touched by chaos in ways imperceptible yet profound. The Emperor's task is to navigate this vast, subtle battlefield, to guide, to restrain, and to anticipate consequences that may take centuries to manifest. The interplay between mortal ambition and cosmic forces illustrates a truth. Even the strongest hand cannot fully shield against the seduction of unchecked desire. Reflection deepens. The Emperor's battle is as much internal as external. It is a confrontation with temptation, with moral ambiguity, with the realization that power is never absolute. Chaos is patience incarnate, teaching that the quiet erosion of virtue can be more devastating than open warfare. And in this tension, the narrative reveals the fragility of even the greatest civilizations when confronted by forces that manipulate not by force, but by understanding the heart of what it means to be mortal. The shadows of loyalty and ambition twist quietly, unseen by the untrained eye. Horus, the favored son, the war master, carries the weight of trust and the brilliance of victory, but within him stirs a tempest shaped by pride, envy, and whispered temptation. The Emperor, in his infinite foresight, had sought to guide him, to mold him into the perfect instrument of unity. Yet even the most radiant star casts a shadow, and within that shadow lies the seed of betrayal. You feel the slow unraveling, the subtle choices that escalate into catastrophe. The whispers of chaos reach Horus as a gentle seduction, promising glory, freedom from restraint, the validation of his deepest desires. Every counsel ignored, every fleeting doubt becomes a foothold. The heresy is not born in a single act, but is woven meticulously through decisions, ambitions, and the very vulnerabilities that make him human. The narrative immerses you in the emotional and psychological turbulence. Horus wrestles with loyalty and self-interest, with devotion to his father and the intoxicating pull of ultimate power. You sense the Emperor's awareness and grief, a psychic weight pressing across galaxies, yet he cannot intervene directly without breaking the delicate balance of free will. The tension is unbearable, a slow crescendo of inevitability that grips the mind and soul alike. Civilizations and fleets are drawn into the conflict, not merely by armies, but by the consequences of a fractured trust. Entire worlds are cast into chaos, suffering from the ripple of decisions that began in the hearts of a few. The scale is epic, yet the focus remains intimate. The heartbreak of betrayal, the cost of misplaced confidence, and the moral ambiguity of choices made under immense pressure, immersive sensory elements, elevate the story. You feel the cold metal of warships, hear the distant echoes of battle across star systems, and sense the psychic resonance of millions of lives caught in the turbulence. The heresy is both grand and intimate, a cosmic tragedy enacted on a scale few can fully comprehend, yet felt in every act of devotion, defiance, and desperation. philosophical reflection deepens the tension. Was the fall of Horus inevitable, or merely the result of subtle manipulations beyond comprehension? Can free will truly exist in the shadow of power, when desire, ambition, and cosmic forces converge? The narrative pauses at these questions, inviting you to consider the delicate interplay between fate and choice, loyalty and temptation, ambition and morality. You witness the Emperor's silent suffering, a combination of strategic calculation and personal loss. Every decision made to mitigate destruction carries a cost. Every restraint exacts a toll, and every failure is amplified by the enormity of what is at stake. The Horus Heresy is more than a war. It is a reflection of the human condition, writ across the canvas of a galaxy, an exploration of how even the greatest visions can unravel through the vulnerabilities embedded in their most cherished instruments. As the heresy reaches its climax, the devastation is total yet selective. Worlds fall, legions fracture, and ideals collapse, while moments of loyalty, courage, and brilliance persist amidst the ruin. The Emperor confronts the paradox of action versus consequence, to strike, to restrain, to protect, all while knowing the personal cost of intervention is immeasurable. This section emphasizes both the cosmic and the intimate. Betrayal is a storm that reshapes empires and personal hearts alike. Horus becomes a mirror, reflecting ambition, pride, and the subtle seduction of chaos. The narrative holds a tension between empathy and horror, allowing you to feel the weight of loyalty betrayed and the inevitability of tragedy even before the final confrontation. Reflection lingers. Trust, ambition, love, and duty are not absolutes. Even the most brilliant strategies can be undone by desires that remain unseen until it is too late. The Horus Heresy is both a narrative of devastation and a meditation on the nature of power, control, and the fragile line between guidance and autonomy. The battlefield lies silent now, but the echo of devastation lingers like a faint, insistent pulse. The Emperor, maimed and broken, is placed upon the Golden Throne, a monument not merely of power, but of sacrifice, of endurance beyond mortal comprehension. You feel the weight of his presence, stretched thin across the Imperium, yet vast enough to touch the hearts, minds, and souls of billions. The throne is both prison and sanctuary, a liminal space where flesh, spirit, and will converge. His physical form is shattered, but his psychic essence radiates endlessly, a beacon and a burden. Across star systems, you sense the Emperor guiding, observing, and restraining forces beyond ordinary perception. Every decision, every subtle influence is a thread carefully woven into the vast tapestry of the Imperium's survival. Yet the cost is immeasurable. Humanity depends upon him, yet cannot perceive the extent of the sacrifice he endures. The narrative immerses you in this duality, vigilance and isolation, power and suffering. The Emperor exists simultaneously as a godlike overseer and a prisoner of circumstance. Each moment of psychic exertion exacts pain. Each act of intervention distances him from the corporeal world he once walked freely. Even the throne itself hums with tension, a fusion of arcane technology and psychic might that sustains life while exacting its quiet toll. You witness the philosophical dimensions of eternal vigilance. To rule without presence, to guide without touch, is to become symbol and shadow, to hold the weight of civilization upon a mind stretched to the limits of endurance. Mortality is sacrificed in the name of survival. Freedom is curtailed to protect order. The Emperor's vigilance is both heroic and tragic, a meditation on the balance between necessity and moral compromise. Sensory richness pervades the scene, the soft hum of the throne's machinery, the flicker of psychic energy cascading through the Imperium, the faint whisper of devotion from billions of souls. It is an intimate yet cosmic narrative, bridging the personal suffering of the Emperor with the sprawling complexity of his domain. His presence is felt even in moments of silence, a subtle pressure on the conscience of leaders, soldiers, and citizens alike. The story reflects on the subtle moral decay that accompanies reliance on a singular, eternal protector. Humanity, awed and dependent, risks stagnation, hubris, and a fragile faith in an unbroken order. The Emperor's existence preserves life and civilization, yet also creates vulnerability. The Imperium's reliance on a single unseen force fosters complacency, subtle corruption, and the ever-present danger of moral compromise. Within this tension, the narrative explores the quiet grandeur of sacrifice. The Emperor's mind is a battlefield of endless vigilance, a crucible of psychic exertion, a repository of knowledge, memory, and foresight. You sense the paradox. To save humanity, he must forsake freedom. To maintain order, he must endure suffering. The Golden Throne is both triumph and torment, a monument to the limits of power, the cost of survival, and the burden of eternal responsibility. Reflection lingers on the psychic resonance of his presence. Even now, his influence threads through the Imperium's political, cultural, and spiritual life. He is the fulcrum upon which billions of fates pivot, yet remains hidden, untouchable, and incomprehensible. Every act of obedience, every whisper of loyalty, every measure of devotion is amplified, observed, and subtly guided. Vigilance becomes a narrative in itself, an unending meditation on duty, morality, and the tenuous balance between guidance and control. The section concludes with a lingering awareness of cosmic scale. The Emperor is both intimate and infinite, a presence that is felt in every corner of existence, yet experienced directly by none. His struggle is eternal, his watch unbroken, and the tension between survival, morality, and human imperfection persists as an inexorable truth. The Imperium thrives outwardly, a vast web of worlds, fleets, and armies. Yet beneath this shining surface lies a delicate, often invisible fragility. You feel the subtle currents of dependence, billions of lives guided, restrained, and shaped by the silent presence of the Emperor on the Golden Throne. Civilization itself has become intertwined with his vigilance, a web held taut by fear, devotion, and the quiet pressure of unseen influence. Culture, politics, and spirituality are all shaped by this dependence. Innovation is measured against the risk of upsetting fragile stability. Morality is tempered not by reflection, but by obedience. You sense the weight of unspoken compromises, leaders hesitant to act boldly, society slowed by caution, and faith evolving into rigid structures that preserve order at the cost of dynamism. The subtle moral decay is pervasive yet unremarked, a slow erosion of creativity and autonomy that mirrors the psychic toll borne by the Emperor himself. Chaos does not strike with overt armies here. It infiltrates through small cracks, exploiting desires, ambitions, and obsessions. A whispered suggestion, a half-forgotten legend, or the allure of forbidden knowledge can seed corruption that grows imperceptibly. You watch as cults, secretive sects, and hidden networks emerge, their influence spreading quietly across star systems. Course. Every indulgence, every act of ambition, and every subtle compromise feeds the ongoing struggle between order and entropy. Even the most disciplined citizens are not immune. Artists, scholars, and politicians may believe themselves independent, yet the threads of influence, both the Emperor's guidance and the persistent temptation of chaos, shape choices and desires. Desire itself becomes a vector of influence, a force that can be weaponized subtly without visible violence, yet with consequences just as profound as any open war. The narrative delves into the philosophical tension: survival versus freedom, order versus innovation, restraint versus indulgence. Civilization's reliance on an eternal protector ensures continuity, yet fosters stagnation. The paradox is palpable. The very presence that sustains life also imposes limits, not through force but through subtle control, shaping morality, culture, and ambition alike. You feel the quiet horror of slow collapse. Not a single world burns openly, yet over centuries, the accumulation of minor compromises, hidden indulgences, and unchallenged desires bend civilization toward decay. The Imperium's greatest strength, its unity under the Emperor, is also its quiet vulnerability. The psychic threads that maintain cohesion can just as easily be exploited, twisted, or overwhelmed, and the consequences ripple outward in ways imperceptible yet profound. Sensory immersion deepens. The hum of distant starships, the rhythmic prayers of billions, the echoing void of silent worlds, all touched by forces that cannot be fully seen. Every decision, every act of restraint, every fleeting moment of indulgence resonates across the Imperium, contributing to a delicate balance that can shift subtly at any moment. The narrative draws attention to this web of cause and effect, emphasizing how even the smallest act of desire or ambition may have consequences far beyond immediate perception. Reflection lingers on the moral and psychological consequences. Humanity is caught in a slow, endless negotiation with forces it barely comprehends. Civilization survives through caution, devotion, and restraint, yet the very mechanisms that protect life also suppress creativity, spontaneity, and moral clarity. You recognize the enduring tension, Vigilance preserves but also confines. Guidance protects yet also binds. The section closes with the sense that these subtle consequences are ongoing and inescapable. The Imperium continues, vast and imposing, yet every success carries a hidden weight. Civilization advances, but at the cost of autonomy, moral purity, and the unmeasured toll of constant dependence on the Emperor's eternal vigilance. The story evokes both admiration and unease, leaving you aware that in the grand theater of existence, survival is never free, and balance is maintained only through endless quiet vigilance. The cosmos stretches endlessly, a silent witness to the paradox of humanity and divinity intertwined. Here at the apex of history and consequence, the Emperor stands as both savior and symbol of imperfection. You sense the irony. The very figure who preserves civilization is also bound by its limits, a being of near omnipotence tethered to a fragile, sprawling Imperium. Every triumph is shadowed by compromise. Every act of restraint carries a hidden cost, and every victory is ephemeral, slipping inexorably into the river of time. Civilization teeters on the edge, caught in the eternal push and pull between devotion, ambition, and temptation. You feel it in the hearts of citizens, soldiers, and leaders alike, the tension between duty and desire, morality and expedience, fear and hope. Each choice, however small, resonates across eons, rippling outward like subtle waves in the warp shaping destinies unseen. The eternal struggle is both cosmic and timid, felt in the smallest spark of ambition and the grandest sweep of galactic strategy. The Emperor's vigilance is constant, yet imperfect. His psychic presence binds the Imperium together, guiding, restraining, and protecting. Yet in his absence, even for a fleeting moment, chaos and desire press against the boundaries of order. You witness the quiet erosion of stability, the seduction of the imperceptible pull of temptation that can twist the most steadfast mind. The eternal struggle is ongoing, a tension that cannot be resolved, only endured. At the core of this climax lies the philosophical paradox. Power without end carries both protection and peril. The Emperor's existence ensures survival, but also creates dependency, shaping morality and ambition in ways subtle and profound. The very act of preserving life and civilization becomes an intimate dance with imperfection, an acknowledgement that every intervention, every choice, reverberates with consequences that no being, however powerful, can fully predict or control. You are drawn into this tension, imagining the countless souls navigating this delicate balance. The soldier resisting temptation on a pleasure world. The noble striving for perfection while constrained by tradition. The psyker feeling the whispers of the warp and resisting the seduction of knowledge. Every act of discipline, every sacrifice, every quiet defiance is a thread in the eternal struggle, an imperceptible counterweight against forces that never rest. The narrative evokes existential dread, the understanding that perfection is unattainable, that the balance is fragile, and that the universe itself is indifferent to morality. Yet within this dread is also a strange awe. You recognize the beauty and resilience, the courage and vigilance, and the silent nobility and enduring struggle against forces beyond comprehension. The climax is not a battlefield of armies, but a theater of the mind and soul, where every thought, every desire, and every moral choice carries infinite weight. The struggle is illuminated through sensory immersion, the faint hum of the golden throne, the distant glow of 1,000 worlds, the psychic resonance of lives intertwined with the Emperor's will. Shadows of chaos twist at the edges of perception, subtle yet persistent, reminding all sentient beings that the fight is endless. Even in moments of calm, the tension persists, a silent current that guides, tempts, and challenges every living mind. Reflection deepens. The Emperor's eternal role is both a gift and a burden. Humanity's ongoing battle is mirrored in his vigilant consciousness. Every act of preservation echoes with quiet sacrifice. Every victory is balanced by subtle compromise, and every moment of peace is haunted by the awareness of what is always at stake. The eternal struggle is inseparable from the nature of existence itself, and to witness it is to understand the delicate interplay between survival, morality, and desire. The section closes with the weight of inevitability. Victory is fleeting, restraint is temporary, and the universe continues its slow, inexorable rhythm. Yet in this understanding lies both terror and reverence. The eternal struggle endures, shaping civilizations, testing souls, and reminding all that the balance between light and shadow, order and chaos, is never final, never complete, and never without consequence. The cosmos exhales quietly, as if holding its breath in contemplation of what has been revealed. You are left with the truths that linger in the spaces between thought. Immortality preserves and endangers. Power protects yet ensnares, and vigilance is both shield and shackle. The Emperor's presence, eternal and unseen, stretches across the galaxy, a silent witness to human ambition, hubris, and perseverance. Every life, every choice, every fleeting moment of joy or despair reverberates in his consciousness, threading together the intricate tapestry of existence. Reflection deepens as you consider the paradox that has defined this narrative. To wield power is to bear consequence. To seek perfection is to invite imperfection. And to endure is to accept responsibility, not only for oneself, but for the countless lives touched by one's influence. You feel the weight of eternity pressing gently yet insistently, a reminder that every triumph carries the echo of compromise, and every act of restraint is a fleeting bastion against the tide of desire and decay. The Imperium, vast and fragile, mirrors the soul of its eternal guardian. Dependency and discipline coexist with ambition and vulnerability. The subtle erosion of morality, the quiet seduction of excess, the insidious presence of chaos, all these threads are woven into the fabric of existence, shaping civilizations in ways both seen and unseen. Humanity, for all its resilience, walks a knife's edge between salvation and ruin, guided by the light of the Emperor and shadowed by the inevitability of desire. Even hope is tempered by caution. The whispers of Unid, the god of the dead, suggest a potential counterbalance to the insatiable hunger of chaos. Yet this vision is fragile, a flickering candle against the vast darkness of inevitability. Mortals may resist, civilizations may endure, and the courageous may prevail temporarily. But the universe itself imposes its subtle yet relentless lessons. Vigilance is eternal, restraint is never complete, and the battle of the soul is unending. The conclusion draws the narrative inward, reflecting on the intimate dimension of cosmic struggle. The Emperor, though godlike in presence, embodies the fragility of all sentient striving, a symbol of power, wisdom, and moral complexity. To understand him is to grasp the delicate balance between ambition and consequence, desire and discipline, light and shadow. The story closes not with resolution, but with contemplation, inviting you to linger in the weight of knowledge, the resonance of sacrifice, and the quiet, inexorable rhythm of existence itself. Finally, the imagery leaves you suspended between awe and dread. The golden throne hums with psychic energy, distant stars glimmer with possibility, and the shadow of the Emperor stretches across the galaxy, eternal, patient, and inevitable. Life, desire, ambition, and morality continue their eternal cadence, a reminder that existence is both gift and burden, and that the struggle, silent, subtle, and profound, persists for all who feel, think, and yearn. The narrative closes with a single enduring truth. To live is to exist under the gaze of eternity. To act is to carry consequence, and to resist is to participate in an unending dance between light and shadow. The Emperor's vigilance endures, and with it the fragile, intricate, and eternal story of sentient life continues.